Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 89, the podcast where we're talking about photography, videography, and all the beautiful things that have anything to do with making photos, making videos, and all the rest of it. Now, it's episode 89, and that means only one thing. It's the first episode of 2022.
Is that what the year is?
That's what the year is, apparently.
Is it really?
So we're now officially in the third year of Camera Shake Podcast. Yeah, because we started in 2019, then we went all the way through 2020. No, we didn't. We started in 2020, and then we went all the way through 2021.
There we go.
And now it's 2020. So see, I'm getting myself confused. Yeah. So yeah, man, how was your New Year's Eve?
I was gigging.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yes, I was. It actually went ahead. Couldn't believe it. I was expecting it to be cancelled. It wasn't, and it was amazingly sold out.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. There's four of us in my band, and it was a venue that was maybe 250 people there, something like that, give or take. Excluding bar staff, how many people do you think were wearing masks?
5.
4.
Okay,
was it
you people? Oh,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Were you gigging with masks on?
Not while playing,
Right,
but
okay.
any other time moving around and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's just, it's rife out there at the minute.
Yeah, well,
and not that I have to say I'm not actually overly worried about it. I still don't want it. And I thought, well,
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because do you remember we were like texting, and I think it was just about roundabout New Year's Eve or something like that. And basically, it was like, I've just heard from 2 friends that had tested positive, and you were like, I've heard from 2 friends. And like, literally, whilst we were testing, I had another message from another friend saying, that they tested positive. It was just that one evening, and the following morning or something, where like all of these messages were flooding in of people saying, "Oh shoot, I'm positive," blah blah.
Yeah.
So probably not surprising given where our numbers are.
Yeah, they're kind of high, aren't they?
Yeah. So it's a miracle that we're allowed to be in the same room. But
I think we're done with all of that. It's just going to get easier and easier now. And to a good extent, I actually kind of agree with it. The issues that this is now causing, like health issues, is greatly reduced on what it was when the numbers were significantly lower.
Apparently so, yeah. So I mean, we'll see.
But frankly, do I believe the numbers and things that come? No, but I didn't believe it before either. So
I mean, I just find it, I still find it mind-boggling that this is episode 89 and we're still talking about this.
Yeah, that's kind of mad.
Do you remember when we first started? We said when we get to episode 100, we've got to like throw a big party and invite all of our guests and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And now we're 11 episodes away from that, and it's not really somehow.
It may or may not happen.
Well, yeah,
exactly.
It still seems somehow unlikely.
Totally.
So it's nuts. But we've had a really tumultuous.
Sorry, a what?
Tumultuous. A tumultuous year.
I'm not even sure what that means.
I have no idea. Anyway, it was a great year. I mean, 2021. Has been really quite amazing as far as the podcast has been concerned.
It has, yeah. It's been varied. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We've done a lot of different things. And so today we're going to be talking about our top 10 of our favorite episodes of 2021. And you may agree or disagree, but if it'd be really interesting if you could let us know what your favorite episode or episodes were that we did in 2021. That'd be really super interesting. So no matter where you are, whether you're listening over here in the UK or whether you're abroad over in the States or in Canada or in Germany or in France or in any of those crazy countries where people are listening to our podcast, please, please, please send us a message and let us know what your favorite episode was and, why you like listening to the Camera Shake podcast. So that's the one thing to send out there. Please get in touch. It'd be super awesome. You can hit us up on Instagram, send us an email on camerashakepodcast@gmail.com or, Facebook and any of the other ways. Tie a message to a pigeon and send it over if that's what you're into.
I'm trying to work out how many episodes it's been since I heard that.
Exactly. Well, so
anyway,
so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about our favorites, our top 10, and this is in no particular order, by the way. So we've just literally randomly come up with a list of our favorite 10, And so we're just going to talk a little bit about each episode. We're going to show you some clips of that. And then, of course, in the description, you'll find the links to those episodes. So if you're interested in diving a little bit deeper into any of the episodes that we're mentioning today, you can do that. Just go down to the description, check out the link, and again, let us know what you think. Anyway, so
indeed,
let's start with number one. So I think the number one episode for me was the Coffee Fernway episode, which was episode 70.
Yeah. Is it really that long ago?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
God.
Yeah.
That's scary. That was ace. From start to finish, that was just fun.
Yeah, that was super fun because it was the first time. This was in August, I believe, and it was really when our COVID numbers were really low. We were pretty free to do whatever we wanted to do, and so it gave us the opportunity to meet up with Dave Williams in Wales.
Yep. And
so we took the podcast on the road, and we filmed this episode in the middle of nowhere, in or around the Welsh border regions. So we were literally in the middle of a forest. It took quite some driving to get there because it was all off road.
Yeah.
And we spent the night there producing this episode.
Yeah, and let's not forget that we went camping.
Yes, we went camping, much to your excitement.
It was awful. In every way, it was just terrible.
Well, so the funny thing was, obviously, we were there to film Dave Williams' van at Coffee Fernway. And so we had pitched a tent. And I actually slept really quite well. But I remember, when we got up in the morning, you were like complaining about having had a really rough night and everything. And what we didn't realize when we pitched up the tent, but it became very clear when we took it down.
This isn't even in the BTS.
No, it isn't. That's right. So when we took the tent down, it turned out that my half, where I was sleeping, was on like grass.
No. Plush.
Plush, yeah.
Plush.
Yeah, so
like a pillow.
Yeah.
He was sleeping on air is what that was like.
But your half was...
What was it?
Rocks.
Boulders.
Yeah. So that was hilarious. There's, by the way, if you are interested, last week we did an episode that was really based around the behind the scenes. So we shot some behind the scenes footage of that episode. So if you want to go and check out episode 88 as well, so you can see what was going on behind the scenes. And I highly recommend that you check it out on YouTube because you can actually see us trying to make this work. So I think if you want to see what goes into making one of these episodes, that gives you a really good example. But yeah, the camping thing was hilarious.
That was funny. Yeah. That was funny. Two of my personal favorite moments in that was waking up in the morning and telling you how bad it was. And when we first met Dave, or when I first met Dave, because you'd seen the van and met Dave previously, because you did a shoot together, right?
Yeah.
Where I called his van a love machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were my two particular personal highlights.
Did you love the music I chose for that?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was very good. Very good. It was like Ron Jeremy was in the background.
Yeah. So exactly. So here are some impressions of episode 70 of the Coffee Fernway episode. Hope you enjoy it. We are here in a very special occasion because we are once again with a very special guest, David Williams, right here on the show. And we're not in our usual set.
No. Are we not?
This is weird, right?
It's very weird.
What I would call this is middle of nowhere.
We are literally in no man's land.
I don't really know where we are.
Well, we're actually in no man's land.
We are. Well, yeah, because there is Wales and there is England. And we're not quite sure where the line is, to be honest. We just know that there are lots of green things around us and not many people.
We did have to drive into Wales to get here.
And then we came back out and then we went back in.
Very odd.
It was odd.
Yes, totally confusing.
Yeah.
One thing that you won't be able to hear on the video, on the podcast, are the strange noises that are going on around us because we're actually in the middle of a forest.
Yeah.
Dave has some thoughts, let's say, on
some
what
thoughts.
These sounds are.
These are facts. These are absolute cold, hard facts. Bigfoot is a thing, right? Bigfoot is definitely a thing. Cryptozoology is a thing. There's no smoke without fire. Exhibit A. So if people are talking about Bigfoot, then Bigfoot's a thing. Now, what's to say Bigfoot's not watching us right now? Why have you got a torch?
Just for safety.
Just for safety.
Just for safety.
And I'm... Okay. Well, there are some very strange noises, I'll give you that. But here's the thing. It's very strange that you should be concerned about noises, because it's the things that don't make the noise that you should be concerned about.
Yeah, like silent farts.
Silent farts. Oh,
What the hell? Okay, we're in a rainforest all of a
no,
sudden.
that's an owl.
Oh, is
I can
it?
tell you for a fact that was an owl.
That was a monkey.
Don't worry, guys. That's also an owl. Different kind of owl. The screaming coming from over there earlier. No idea.
This is promising to be a really interesting episode.
This is going to be an interesting episode.
Yes, it is.
The most likely thing that's going to happen at the moment, based on all the planning I'm doing, is I'm going to leave early November, cross the Eurotunnel into France, turn left, and then go through Belgium, Holland, Germany, overnight somewhere near Hamburg, and then drive up into Denmark and get a ferry from Hirtshals at the top of Denmark over to Seyðisfjörður in Iceland. And I don't know if you got that pronunciation, but it's Seyðisfjörður.
I believe it was perfect pronunciation.
Thank you. I'm going to spend a few weeks in Iceland. This is the plan. So if this doesn't happen, I'm sorry, but this is the plan. Then I'm going to get on the ferry again and over to Tórshavn, which is in the Faroe Islands. Spend about 10 days there. The Faroe Islands, if you've never been, by the way, is terrible for your mobile phone because they don't really have any roaming agreement with anyone, but they've got really, really fast data. It's incredible. It's insanely fast. They just like, if you want it, it's £100 a day. So yeah, about 10 days there with no internet. I'll just have to use the Wi-Fi at the one Burger King in the whole country.
Breakfast, lunch and dinner.
Exactly, yeah. Back over to Hirtshals, drive down to Copenhagen, or Copenhagen if you're going for pronunciation in other languages. Have you heard of the Øresund Bridge or the Øresund Bridge?
Øresund Bridge.
Øresund
Bridge.
Yeah, that's
I don't think so.
isn't that the bridge that connects Denmark to Sweden?
It is.
Yeah.
But do you know what's kooky about it?
It was featured in the TV series The Bridge.
It's that bridge.
It's that bridge.
So it's a bridge, but it's also a tunnel.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Okay, so on the Danish side, you go into a tunnel, and then halfway through the Øresund Strait, which is the water between Denmark and Sweden, or Copenhagen and Malmö, comes out of the water and over into a bridge. It's really cool. Look it up.
That'd be
So
amazing.
anyway, yeah, I'll arrive in Malmö and then left again up towards Oslo. Spend about 10 days mooching about in the bottom of Norway, doing things like Preikestolen and what else is there? There's Tvindefossen. There's the Atlantirshavn, the Atlantic Ocean bridge that bounces between the islands. I actually rode there on a motorbike. It was in Triumph magazine. So I want to do it again in this because, you know, why not? It's cool. It's a really cool bridge. And then up into Sweden to Kiruna, arrive in Kiruna and that general area, which is Lapland, in time for Christmas. So I'll get there about 21st of December. Then back into Norway, up to the top of Norway to the Nordkapp for New Year's. So I'll be at the northernmost point in Europe for New Year's, assuming the weather allows me to get there. And then down into Lofoten Island, Senja, that sort of area for a bit, and then back out into Finland to Lappi, go skiing, and then duck out into Russia and down into Belarus to get out of the Schengen area. That's the plan.
That's a journey.
So that is UK, France, Belgium, Holland, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, Finland, Russia. 10 countries, 3 months.
Yeah,
Fine,
around
right?
the world in 180
It'd be
180 days
fine.
springs to mind. Yeah.
But then
Wow,
the
man.
bit after that is going to be countries that I've never been to before because it's outside in Eastern Europe and I'm going to have to stay out of the Schengen area. And
Yeah.
although there are countries in that general area that I've been to, there are lots that I haven't. So I'm going to explore and tick a few off as well.
Is 3 months long enough to do all of those countries? And
3 months for
around
that
there.
first bit, yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's going to be tight, but yeah, I mean, it depends on the weather and everything else as well.
Sure.
So there are places I might not be able to go to because it might be too snowy, too icy, too cold, whatever. They might just be closed. Like Prikastollen is Pulpit Rock. Have you seen Mission Impossible where they're on the big ledge?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Prikastollen. And in December, that's not going to be fun. I'm going to do it. It's going to be fun for me, but it's not. It's going to be icy, snowy, cold, middle of nowhere. It's dangerous. I think maybe the word.
and while your plans still might change, I know that, but knowing you've already worked out where you might run into weather issues
Yeah.
and what you will do should you face weather
Yeah,
issues.
exactly.
There, right?
If I get any issues, I know which way to turn, and what the backup plan is. Yeah.
Okay.
So like the North Cape, the Nordkap, the idea is to be there for New Year's Eve and New Year's Day, but there's a chance that I might not be able to get there because I went there in October last time I was there, and even then it was difficult
Oh wow.
because I was driving through a snow cloud. You're on the top of the mountain
Amazing.
in like the snow's not even falling, it's just there, you're in it. Do you know what I mean? It was crazy, and like howling gales and everything else. So yeah, I mean there's things that might go wrong, there's things that might not work, but there's backup plans in place as well. And various places along this route I know people. I don't know if I know who they are, they know who I am. If I needed them, they'd probably help me. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I get up to the Lofoten Islands in the top of Norway, I've definitely got friends there. But along the way, there's people I know, acquaintances, that if I run into trouble, I think I could call on them.
Oh, I'm sure.
So there's always,
I'm sure they would.
there's
fam.
always things in place.
So I hope you enjoyed that. Now, let's talk about number 2. Number 2 was episode 63, which was the episode where we interviewed Chris Knight.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a number of funny things about this episode. First of all, again, that was in the summer, and it was hot as hell in New York.
Was Chris naked?
That's what it looked like to start with when he first came on the call. But he was drenched. I mean, it was so hot. It was in the middle of the heat wave in New York City, and he was suffering. So how you know? I mean, first of all, to see Chris Knight in like t-shirts and shorts, that was the first thing.
They weren't just any shorts; they were short shorts.
Yeah, that's right. And but you know, I mean, how he managed to get through that whole episode, that was amazing.
I know.
You know, because it was hot as hell.
Good lad.
And
What
he
sport.
exactly, and he had Frankenstein this camera together. That was his lockdown project, was to
Yeah.
Frankenstein this camera together, which just blew my mind.
I don't even recall right now what he'd put on it, but it was massive.
Yeah, it was a complete Frankenstein construction, and then he just went, "Hey, do you want to see it?" He just came
He
out with it.
pulled out, yeah. Wait, hang on. Yep, I'll rephrase. He went and got it.
Yeah, I mean, that was really it was interesting to see what people get up to. You know, when they're confined to to their own home in the lockdown scenario. But that was it was very impressive. So have a look at that right now.
I was looking for a way to mount an anamorphic lens to it and not make it cost $20,000, right? So with the anamorphic lenses that exist, they're incredibly expensive. If you can rent one, at best you're getting it into something called a PL mount, which is an RE mount, which is used for cinema cameras. And they do a PL to Fuji adapter. It's like $1,000 adapter, and I just wasn't interested in that. Plus, I wouldn't ever be able to own a lens because they're all, $20,000-$30,000. And so I've seen people adapt anamorphic projector lenses to their cameras, which is a thing that kind of hobbyists and even kind of mid-level cinematographers I've seen do. They take this lens, they find this, they kind of Frankenstein it to another lens with all these different clamps and everything else, and they put it on their camera, and it gives you that weird squeeze, right? It gives the 2x squeeze. So I was on a quest to try to put it on my camera, and to put it onto a medium format system is exponentially harder the bigger the sensor size you have. So it works really well if you're looking at like a micro four thirds or even a crop to a degree. But once you start getting into a full frame and above, it's really, really difficult to kind of adapt and make work, just because you're shooting through so many different optics that it creates really kind of ridiculous like a barrel vignette around the lens. And so I kind of set out to I wanted to create a still camera that operated like a movie camera, that gave me like incredibly high resolving power and resolution, so that I could create stuff that felt like stills from movies and actually use the language of an anamorphic system. Because what you get, to kind of be overly technically nerdy about this with anamorphic, is you get the focal length of the lens you mount it to. And on a medium format, you have to be in somewhere around like 120, 130 millimeter-ish range. Whereas like a full frame, you're around 70. With a crop, you're around 50. And so you have to kind of start with this almost telephoto lens. And then the anamorphic goes on top of it and crams twice the width into the frame, right? So what you end up with is you get the compression of the original lens. So you're getting fundamentally a lens that looks like it's shot on a 130 millimeter lens, 135, right? Really great compression. Everything looks really up close, and you get a nice separation from the background, but you get the field of view of half of that. So you're getting a 135 millimeter lens at a 60 to 70 millimeter field of view. So when you're using wider angle lenses and stuff, if you can work it onto your camera, you may be like getting a 35 mil field of view on a 75 compression. So you don't get that crazy weird distortion of wide angle, but you also get a wide angle. The challenge is you have to focus either two different lens elements at the same time, or add a secondary diopter to the end of it, which gets crazy expensive. And then you have to put it on rails and put a follow focus on it. And it becomes a massively huge system to photograph with. It's incredibly complicated to use.
Yes, it is, isn't it?
See,
that's a stunning way to go about it.
And the funny thing about
you want to see it? I have it right over here.
Really?
Sure,
yeah,
please.
So this is what it became.
Oh, wow.
Right? Let me actually move it over here. So that's what it became.
Wow.
Yeah. So
wow.
This is the GFX 100, right?
Yeah.
That's the GFX 100. Then I ended up trying to use a Fuji adapter, a Fuji lens on. I couldn't quite get a sharp enough image. So I ended up adapting, there's an old Pentax 135 that I had lying around, which is here, with an adapter for that. So I'm already to here. Keep in mind, this is a medium format size camera. It's not a small camera to begin with. So then it goes to here. Then you adapt it. This is an anamorphic here. Then it gets the diopter here, which is the focusing diopter, because I didn't want to have to focus two lenses at the same time.
Yeah.
Then I put a matte box on it with a black magic on the inside to kind of soften the optics a little bit and make it feel a little bit more filmy. And then, of course, you have to run a de-squeezer screen onto it, so you can actually see what you're looking at live. And so what I have to do is I use a remote, I punch in on it, I use the follow focus to zoom in, and then I push the button to fire it.
Awesome.
The challenge I have found has been to tether with it. And so I actually kind of had to figure out because you Capture One and Lightroom don't let you use a 2x pixel ratio, an anamorphic pixel ratio natively. You have to bring it into Photoshop for that, which sucks if you're tethering in Studio.
Right.
So what I ended up doing you can run it to a much bigger Sumo if you have it, like the big external screens, or with these the little guy. It's got an HDMI in on it. What I did for it, just as a trial run, is I ran it as a secondary monitor onto my computer. And then, so what you could do with the Sumo, obviously, which is much bigger, you run it as a secondary monitor, set that to the D-squeeze, and then set your preview window and Capture One to the second monitor, and it'll D-squeeze it live for you. It was a whole like Rube Goldbergian process. It took me a couple months to figure out.
He's still processing.
But I get fascinated by like that kind of weird stuff.
That's it. I mean, I take it you're not going to exactly go out and shoot some street with that.
Oh, you absolutely can.
Because that would be
absolutely can. I built it to go on a shoulder rig, and then you basically run the follow focus, and then you do this.
Right.
It's awkward as hell to do it, and it's not quick to use. It's really not quick. But I've taken it outside, like I've taken it around the house outside and stuff. It totally works. It's just awkward. It's big.
Cool.
I'd love to get a shot of you using that outside. That'd just be immense.
It's cool. Yeah. It's heavy. It's heavy and it's big. It's probably close to 2 feet long. Like all things attached. It's probably a couple feet long.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
that's what I've been doing the last couple of months.
Yeah. So there you have it. I like the fact that he actually took that out around the house as well, and took some shots outside
on a gimbal, I believe. No, Christ, no. That was bizarre, but what project to do?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, totally, and it completely inspired me to experiment a little bit with different lenses, do different things. So, that was number 2. Now, the third episode in our top 10 was our photography show episode 75. Now, that was super fun. That was probably
special for a few reasons.
It was very, very special. I mean, we again, the photography show at the NEC in Birmingham took place in September, and we had decided to go to the show and produce an episode at the show. And we thought it would be a great opportunity, first of all, to meet up with some of our former guests in the flesh.
Incredible.
And that was incredible. And then secondly, it was a great opportunity to actually speak to a number of manufacturers and talk to them about, how they felt being back at the photography show after 2 years, because they had been canceled the year before and have been moved. Typically, the show, in the past, was happening in around March time. And so not only was it canceled the year before and then moved online, but then it was in 2021, it was pushed back to September. So people had basically been out of it for about 2 years, roughly. And as always with those kind of trade shows, it's a really great opportunity for people to connect, because photography is quite a solitary profession sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could see that with the people that are there. And it wasn't as busy as it would normally be. And that was expected.
It was also good, actually.
That from a selfish perspective, that was a really good thing, right?
Yeah, for us it was good.
It meant that we had the ability to grab people and talk to them for a little bit longer than we may have done otherwise, absolutely. Or even been able to talk to them otherwise. Sure. So take Tommy and Alex, for example. They hadn't seen each other for ages.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah, that's right.
And you could just see in their faces what it meant to actually be able to see each other and have a face-to-face conversation.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I mean, Tommy was the first person we met at the show. In fact, we hadn't even entered the building yet. We were just walking around the building towards the entrance when we heard a voice cry out, "Camera Shake Podcast!" Yeah. And we're like, well, what's who? And it was Tommy, so it was fantastic. And it was really great to actually, meet people in person after such a long time. And I think, generally, everybody was really so happy to see each other. And so the social aspect of the show was really almost as important, if not more important, than being able to play with all the gear. Because, of course, a lot had happened in the year or the 2 years prior to the show. Canon had brought out a whole plethora of new bodies and lenses, and and really made inroads in the mirrorless sector and everything else, and actually likewise with Nikon and and a whole bunch of other manufacturers that were there. And not everybody was at the show.
No,
there were quite a few manufacturers who hadn't come over, so everything was a little bit smaller and a little bit more spaced out, and there was maybe slightly lower footfall than there would have been ordinarily, but at the same time, it just made these conversations possible, And what we found was that all the manufacturers and all the people that we spoke to really had a lot of time for us, which was really appreciated, and it was really fun. And I really hope that came across in this episode.
Absolutely, and they were able to share information that to you guys listening and watching now that. They were sharing one-on-one with people here, as and when they're able to, when they weren't selling. Yeah, that was absolutely fantastic.
And we had the opportunity to play with the R8.
R8
or R6? I can't remember. What was it?
Go on, keep going. I'll give you one more try.
See, who?
I'll give you your third try.
Right? Do you realize that I'm not shooting Canon, right? R7, R8, R9.
It's not a Z.
No, it's not. That's what I've just gone.
1, 2.
Oh, 3.
There we go.
It is late. It's late. Anyway,
it is.
3, of course. So we had the opportunity to play with the Canon R3. I think under other circumstances in other years, maybe that wouldn't have been possible quite to the same extent.
No, agreed.
But it made for a really good episode, and we give you some highlights in this clip right now. Welcome to Camera Shake Podcast, episode 75. And today is a very special day because we are at the photography and video show at the NEC in Birmingham. We'll be spending 2 days here talking to loads of people. We've got all the manufacturers are here. We've got Olympus right behind us. We've got Canon. We're looking forward to playing with their brand new R3. We've got Nikon over there, Sony. A whole lot of our former guests are here, so we're going to get some conversations in with them as well. There's a whole lot of educational stuff going on as well. There's tons of stages. It's really super exciting. It's the first photography show in 2 years. So join me. I'll take you in. We'll walk around and we'll have a chat with everyone and everything that is anything in photography. So we're here with Canon, with none other than David Perry. David, how's it going?
Yeah, very good. Yep. Cool. Really good, thank you.
I mean, this looks amazing. What does it feel like being back at the show after like 2 years?
Do you know what? It's so lovely to be back. It was so funny when we did the setup day, and obviously everything's been built. Walking into the NEC and just almost smelling the sort of smells and the sights and everything. Just everything comes screaming back to you. Floods back, and it's just like, wow, I've really, really missed this. To be able to be surrounded by people who are so excited by photography and love to see the equipment and everything. It's just magic. So really, really missed it. And so glad to be back.
So here we are on the internet. Internet? Let me just try again.
And take 2.
Exactly. So here we are on the Interfit store with none other than Ben Bentley. Ben, how is it going?
Hey, nice to see you guys. Yeah, really good. This is day 2. I'm only here Saturday and Sunday, so it's a short show for me this year. But it's so far so good. It's been really nice to be back in a room with real life human beings, and obviously everyone's really excited to be out and to be checking out new equipment and checking out new techniques. So it's a pretty positive experience overall, I think. Yeah.
Right, so we're here at the three-legged thing stall. Stall is it a stall? Is it a stand?
It's, the WEX stand, but we're representing three-legged thing.
Excellent. So a three-legged thing. I'm here with Caitlin McEwen. Caitlin, what is it like being back at the show?
It's so great being back at the show to see so many people and to be able to interact with everyone, and so people can get hands-on experience with the products. It's really good for them to get to experience it before they decide to purchase it.
It's been tricky for the last sort of 18 months, 2 years, right?
Yeah, it's been really difficult because people want to be able to see the products and everything before they decide to buy it, so they can see if it's right for them and for their gear. But being back today has been great.
So see what the cat dragged in. We've got Tommy.
As in the best intro.
So we found, lurking amongst the Sony stands, Tommy Reynolds and Alex Benny, some of our former guests over here. Guys, it's been awesome to be here at the show, eh?
It's so nice to be here, and it's also the first time I'm seeing you and Nick face to face. It's so lovely to be here.
It's funny when you meet people for the first time when you've only spoken to them, on Zoom. And I knew you were tall, Alex, but I didn't know you were that tall.
I get that a lot, but it's really good to see you guys in person. We had such a great chat when we did the podcast, and it just feels so good to be back at the show. Seeing all the people that you know face to face, it's like just starting to feel normal again. So 100%. It's really glad to be back.
And it's one thing actually being able to go out and work again. So that was the first thing, but that now actually being in a position where we can all come together and meet other professionals and start talking to manufacturers again for the first time. That's kind of sort of elevated. Actually, it's made it. I can't talk today. This may have something to do with what we got up to last night. But what I'm trying to say is it's made it feel a lot more real for me, actually, that things are coming back.
100%. I think photography in general can be a lonely place because you work on your own, you edit on your own. And I think what I love about the trade show in general is it just gives you an opportunity to put names to faces that you might have been speaking to online. And that's the great thing about photography in general and the community is that it's so communicative. And the trade show is a great opportunity for us to kind of come together and see other like-minded people. And it's just I get such a lovely buzz from being around other people.
So we're here at Rode Microphones with Tom Lewis. Tom, how's it going? How are you finding this photography show after 2 years?
Strange. Obviously, with everything that's gone on, being in this kind of environment, after the show being cancelled, feels strange, but it's really good to be here. Really happy to be here. We've got lots of cool stuff to show off, lots of new things that people haven't been able to see in person. So, yeah, really happy to be here.
We're really excited about Rode mics because we use Rode mics a lot in what we do, and so it's actually great to be able to actually see things in reality rather than on the screen.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely, and talk to people that know the stuff the best.
So we're here at the Olympus stand with the two Claires from Olympus and also better known from Coffee with the Claires. How are you guys?
We're good.
Thank you.
So good. Thank you for having us.
So pleased to be here. Yes, Coffee with the Claires. What a phenomenon that's been. If you haven't watched it, you should.
Where can you see it?
So it's on at the Olympus UK Facebook. We stream it live. We generally do it about every 3 to 4 weeks. Yeah, we do. We started it on a Saturday, but now we've taken it to sort of midweek, sort of Fridays.
Evenings. We do a few evenings.
It's such a great family. It's such a great way to connect with customers. And, this all started in the early days of the pandemic. We sat down and we said, how do we get to our customers? We can't see them, there's no shows, what do we do? And so we said, what about doing like a little chat show type thing? And it's grown from there. We have our own merch and everything. It's pretty awesome, isn't it, Claire?
Spiral, doesn't it? It's just got...
This sounds strangely familiar to me, by the way. But we will explore that a little bit further in the near future, for sure. So we're here at the Fujifilm booth with Andreas Georgiadis. Andreas, how's it going?
It's been interesting. It was very lovely to be back, obviously speaking to end users and photographers and everything. We're all a bit out of practice, so only day 2 and our legs are feeling it. We didn't really know what to expect, obviously so close to all the COVID guidelines, all the COVID restrictions rather, ending and what have you. But there's been a great appetite from people to come and see all the new stuff, see us and chat to us, and we're really enjoying it.
it's been a really positive vibe. We've only it's our first day here today, but it's been so positive and welcoming everywhere. It's just been great. It's just great to be out again.
Exactly, yeah. It's a new hall for us. It's a completely new stand as well. So we're just like getting used to that as well. But no, it's lovely to see a lot of the familiar faces, a lot of new faces. We've seen quite a lot of families and a much younger audience as well. So that's credit to the team at the photography show to getting the message out there. But we just love being back.
We're here with Julian Harvey from Nikon. Is it Nikon or Nikon?
It's actually either, confusingly. In the US, our US team definitely say Nikon, but in Europe, and in fact in Japan, where I believe the correct pronunciation must be more readily felt, it's Nikon.
It's Nikon. Oh my God. How could it have been so wrong for so many years? Incredible. It's nuts. Anyway, so Julian, what does it feel like being back at the photography show after 2 years?
It's a day that's been a long time coming, right? I think they shifted it a couple of times. It's wonderful to be back. I think we innovated, as did the rest of humanity, during the pandemic to try and bring as much as we could into digital format. There's lots of good stuff that comes out of that, like accessibility and scalability of the messaging we want to create. But ultimately, it's never quite the same as being able to speak to our audience and to other photographers face to face and really get into some of the detail around these products and our brand.
Right, so we're here at the Sony booth with Sam Pilling. Sam, how's it feel being back?
Well, it's exciting. I mean, we've waited for this event for over a year and we're finally carefully and safely engaging with all the customers again, which it's almost like you've not seen friends for a year. It's exciting.
Yeah. What has been the highlights so far for you here?
Showing people products we've been used to for, in some cases, a year, and they're getting their first hands on it. Because during lockdown, people are not being able to go to the retailers and try hands on with the cameras. There's been the internet, but it's just not the same as a physical event where you get the feel of the weight of a camera for the first time. Specifications are great, but you see people go, oh, when they pick up the camera for the first time, and it's that we've missed. You don't get that selling something through a web page.
So we're here with Lewis Foster from Musicvine. You might recognize Musicvine as one of the music platforms for creators on YouTube, but we're also going to be talking about Upbeat. So, Lewis, what does it feel like being at the photography show?
It's fantastic, yeah, and thank you for having me. This is actually our first time, so we're newbies here. We're really enjoying it. It's great to be. We're an e-commerce platform, so it's actually amazing to be meeting people in person rather than just online.
So we're here at the Wacom stand with David Mallows. David, how are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Really great to be back.
What does it feel like being back at the photography show?
It's just so nice to get and see people and interact, show people products, let people feel and touch the product. Obviously, we're being careful. We're COVID compliant, wiping stuff down between people. You coming, using and switching pens and touching screens. But it's just so great to see people again. So great to be back out.
So we're here at the Zoom stand with Kevin Fabbert from Zoom. Kevin, what's your impression of the photography show so far?
It's been a good day. A good few days. What's interesting is this is the first time we've done the photography show. We also only started with the brand last summer, so it's been the first opportunity that we've had to actually face-to-face meet with people who buy the gear that we sell. And it's been a very interesting experience.
So there you have it. Some impressions of the photography show at the NEC in Birmingham.
You know what? I can't wait for the next
I
one.
actually really can't wait.
Yeah. How are we going to top it?
I tell you how we're going to top it. First of all, we're going to get ourselves a better hotel.
Yep.
That's definitely. Yep. We spend more.
I'm not sleeping with you again. Well, wait, hang on. I'm phrasing again tonight. Wow. I'm not sharing a room with you again.
Well, that wasn't really so much of a problem. But the fact that we spend more money on Ubers, although the hotel was literally like 5 minutes away from the NEC, we spent more money on Ubers than on the actual hotel room, which was nuts.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it?
Yeah, and
don't go budget, people.
Although we went there by car, but the parking charges were outrageous.
It's like you were parking at Heathrow T5 for forever.
Yeah, exactly. So in a weird way, Ubers were actually cheaper than than moving the car closer. But that was craziness. Anyway, so
State of Moxie.
Yeah. If you are planning on going to the photography show in 2022, State of Moxie, which is I'm pretty sure that's where we're going to be staying.
Yeah, it's on the NEC's doorstep.
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly.
Yeah.
So you just fall out of bed and you're there. So that
Which is what you do most mornings.
Exactly. So we hope you enjoyed that. Now, number 4 in our top 10 of our 10 favorite episodes of 2021 is the Learn with Hannah episode, episode 54. That was hilarious.
It was, yeah. Mostly because of the drone footage.
Yeah. So in that episode, what happened was we were interviewing Hannah Cousins, and Hannah had just brought out her learning platform, Learn with Hannah, which was really super interesting. And in that, she had one video that where she was teaching how to use high-speed sync with Flash. And so we thought, like, oh, that's a really good idea. We should really recreate that video in our own unmistakable style. Mainly, we decided to do that because we thought, like, well, it's all well and good. Let's see if you can get the same result with considerably less expensive gear. That was our thinking. Yeah. So rather than using pro photo gear or something, we thought, like, why don't we use considerably cheaper gear and see if we can recreate the whole thing and get a similar result. And actually, we did.
Absolutely, we did.
Yeah,
absolutely, we did.
And so we created a video of that, and I think it's fair to say that Hannah was very impressed by our efforts.
I think she loved the photo. Yeah, she absolutely loved the photo, and she was quite keen to get across as well that you don't need that gear.
Yeah.
To create XYZ photo, you just need to know how to use the gear that you've got.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. There's some very basic principles at work there that if you understand those, you will be able to get the same result, with speed lights or considerably less expensive strobes, for example.
Exactly.
So that was really, I think that was the thing. The main point to bring across is that it's not about how expensive your equipment is. It's about understanding the basic principles of how to light something in a certain situation, like this. So that was very interesting. Again, I love that episode because it actually meant that we could go out and film something out in the field. That I find that for me is one of the most enjoyable things to do.
Yeah, it definitely is, and I suspect we're going to try and do a little bit more of that over the next year.
Exactly.
Right?
Again, get in touch and let us know whether you would like us to do that, because we certainly do enjoy that sort of thing. So, again, give us a shout, email us, or write in any way, shape, or form. Now, here is the best of Learn with Hannah. So we've been looking at Hannah's videos on her Learn with Hannah platform, and one stood out specifically, and that was the high-speed sync video. Now, Nick and I thought, well, we can use these techniques and create our own copy of your high-speed sync photos. So Nick and I went out to the moors and we braved the cold to reshoot your video. And here's what that looks like. Hey, we've come out here to the beautiful moors of Rickmansworth, and we're going to recreate one of Hannah's tutorials. It's all about high-speed sync flash. So since not everyone owns a Profoto lighting kit, we've taken our good old and trusty Interfit Honey Badger Unleashed. It's a radio flash. It should do the trick just fine, but we'll just get going. We'll see what we come up with. So we're going to follow Hannah's instructions step by step. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set our camera to 2.8 aperture, and we're going to be at ISO 100. And I'm going to take just a test shot at the typical sync speed of a 200th of a second. So let's see what that turns out to be. So we're getting a white sky. And what that means is we're going to have to crank up our shutter speed quite dramatically. No, that's perfect. Okay. So let's see. We're at about 1250, a 1250th of a second. Let's have a look. Okay, cool. And our sky is perfectly exposed. Now, the foreground's going to be super dark, and that's what we're going to have to bring the flash in. Okay, now our badger is ready. It's all set. We're using a white umbrella, just like Hannah did in her video, and we're gonna set our flash to TTL. It's starting to get dark out here. The sky's got some really nice colors in there, so let's see what we can do with that. We're just gonna give it a shot and see how it goes. Lift your chin up.
That's the best. I mean, that is so good, guys. Seriously, I can't. You got such a good result. It's better than mine. So I'm just like, this is way better. This is exactly what I love. I love it when you get really good results like that. What sky? You only had some nice weather out there. I mean, you're probably freezing, like you said, Nick, but that looks great. You got such a good result. I love it.
Yeah, tell you what, the sky was cool when we were shooting, but just as we had packed up and we're literally leaving to drag all our gear back to the car, the sky turned into this really incredible purple and pink.
Oh, of course it did. Of course.
Yeah. And we're like, and for a split second, I thought, hang on, let's turn around, let's set up again, let's do it again. But of course, by the time we would have done that, it would have been gone. But
when it's like that seconds at a time, it changes, isn't it? So
yeah, exactly.
I love what you did, and like that's perfect. That's really nice because obviously with the high speed sync video, that was one of the free videos, or is one of the free videos on the course, because it's one of those fundamental things that once you understand it and you've got that base knowledge, I think it really drastically changes the results that you will get from your photography. Because if that sky hadn't been in all those rich, deep colors, you just wouldn't have been able to achieve if you'd just been exposing to nicks. So, especially wearing something dark as well, like it's such a great image. You've got such a great result, and like the work, it looks like you got to that result pretty quickly, and yeah, it's really good. I love it. That's so cool. This makes me so happy. I love it when people go out and get great results, having just sort of recreated something, and I love that. That's so cool. Really good.
So there you have it. That was our attempt of explaining how to use high-speed sync.
Did we explain it?
I don't know. You know what? It was so cold.
We gave up by the end, didn't we?
It was so cold. That really was. It was freezing.
Yeah. Who had a coat on?
Yeah, me probably.
You. Yeah. Who didn't have a coat on?
Probably you.
Yeah. Why?
I don't know, because you had to pose for the photo. See? Clever. Yeah. Behind the camera, you can wear a coat. Yeah, so, man, it's the one thing about this country, the UK, which is where we are, is that, even in like June, July, evenings and nights are still cold.
Cold's a big word, but yeah.
Well, it's freezing, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the one thing, like, in my experience, it can be pretty warm during the day, but as soon as the sun goes down, the temperature really drops quite considerably.
It does.
So, as opposed to like maybe some, countries closer to the Mediterranean or something, or even the south of Germany where, my mom lives, for example, like when you have a really hot day in the summer, you can sit out for a really long time and it doesn't really get that much colder.
It does turn. It does turn. But don't worry, because our houses are not built for that. So they hold all of that heat in during the day.
There's that.
And it's just roasting at night.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of it.
That's why I've considered sleeping outside sometimes.
Really? Are you talking about camping again?
No, I would put a bed outside.
Oh, right, okay. So that could be it. That could be our next trip. Right, so now let's talk about number 5 in our top 10 of favorite episodes. That was our first anniversary episode, episode 52.
Or was it 53?
No, it's 52.
We had a debate about that. Is it 50? Wait, 52, 3? Yeah, no, that was great. That was great fun. That was the first time we got out.
Yeah.
No, not ever, but since lockdown really began.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the
big deal.
Exactly. I mean, what was happening was that we had earlier in the year, or actually, I should say, late in 2019. No, late in 2020, we had decided that we wanted to go on a little street photography outing.
That's right. Yeah.
And the idea was to go to London, and then
yes,
just around that time, the COVID cases were going through the roof, and we decided at the last minute that it would be safer for us to avoid London, and to go to the coast instead.
Yeah.
So we went,
of course.
So we went to Brighton, and then several months later in the summer, well, summer is a big word, but when it got warmer and COVID cases kind of calmed down a little bit, we thought, well, maybe now we have a chance to actually go into London and do a little bit of street photography there. And really, the idea was to shoot the entire first anniversary episode in London. But what actually happened was very different.
Well, we learned a little something, didn't we?
We learned a bit of a lesson there.
Yeah. Apparently, we're not very good at multitasking.
Apparently, we're terrible at multitasking.
And to go out and both do photography and try and film an episode like that, or any kind of BTS, is slightly challenging, and you get completely distracted. Not distracted, you're focused on doing the thing that you're there to do, and that's to take photos.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, the other thing was that we were both like, kids in a sweet shop, because we both hadn't been to London in I think probably a year or something.
At least, yeah.
At least. And so to actually, get back into the big smoke and just experiencing it, and it was relatively empty as well. There weren't really that many people.
But that's right, you heard it here first. Big smoke.
Yeah, the big smoke. There you go. So, I mean, for us, it was like literally, I felt like we were walking around like wide-eyed little kids. So it was just too much of a mind-blowing experience for us to even like contemplate concentrating on anything else.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised we even got some photos done.
Yeah,
in the end, because we were literally just walking around going, "Oh man, look at that!"
And we didn't get that many photos.
No,
done
exactly.
either, really.
Right.
Yeah. Do you know what the funny thing is? We're talking about this now, and actually, in a couple of weeks, we're going back for a job that we're doing down there.
Oh yeah, absolutely. True,
That'll be the first time we've both been to London together since the first anniversary.
Oh,
episode,
absolutely,
right?
yeah.
There we go. There we go.
All comes back around.
Topical.
But yeah, so that was amazing. So the sequence that we managed to put together, this is the thing. So I mean, what the plan was to basically.
I have no idea how that sequence came together.
Well, out of the 2.5 minutes that we actually managed to film,
I got 2 minutes, 27 seconds.
I think the plan was to film something like 45 to 60 minutes or something. We actually managed to get some like 2.5 minutes together or something. And so in the end, what we actually did was
of shaky footage.
Well, what we actually did was when it became time to, film the main part of the episode, we just literally just went outside, sat down, found a bench by a river, and sat down and just filmed the whole thing outside.
Yeah, wasn't the audio good on that?
It was amazing. Wasn't the audience great on that?
Yeah.
With
we
an
did have
audience of swans.
Yeah.
Swans
Anyway.
and other people on the other side of the river. So
good times. Good times.
So that was fun. Again, episode 52. Here's a little clip. Hope you enjoy it. Camera Shake Podcast, episode 52. 52, that can only mean one thing. It's our first anniversary. It's been a whole year. A whole year of Camera Shake Podcast.
A whole year.
A whole year. And we've literally just come back from London, which was a whole other experience.
It was.
How's it for you?
It was. Are we getting distracted by the weir in the background?
I don't know. This is a first for many things. First of all, this is like, obviously our first year anniversary episode, but also it's the first time we're filming outside, because as of now we are allowed to meet up outside. So this episode will be entirely filmed outside. And it's strangely distracting. There's like a waterfall
really
over there, or whatever that is. Is that a waterfall?
A weir.
Whatever that is. A weir. So there's a weir over there, there's birds over here, yeah. There's like some bell tower behind us, planes above.
We could have found somewhere quieter. Yeah. We could have found somewhere, more fitting for video, but we didn't want to because we like it here. It's really nice.
It's a nice day. We've actually had a great day in London. That was a really cool day. There's a bird thing, whatever that is. A swan.
It was a swan.
It was a swan. So we are in London right now. You can see the South Bank right behind me, the beautiful London skyline, the walkie-talkie is just over there. So we've come to do some street photography, believe it or not. And we shall see how that goes. How can I help? And that was a little impression of episode 52. Now, we were shooting episode 52, or we were shooting some of the photos, some of the street photos, and then of course a few weeks later we had another one of our guests on, Nina Welch Kling, who's the street photography goddess, I would say.
Yeah.
And the idea was to have her critique our photos. And that really takes us to number 6 in our top 10 of favorite episodes.
And that happened because we challenged her in the episode.
Yes.
To come and do it.
Correct. Yes. So episode 65, if you want to check it out, that's the episode where Nina Welch Kling critiques our street photography efforts.
Yeah.
And to be honest,
turns out it wasn't street photography we did.
Yes, because I think our original challenge was, we thought, we're going to go to London and we're going to shoot silhouettes.
So
and I think we managed to get one silhouette shot.
Yeah. Turns out everything else was portrait and
yeah, we did just buy anything else, but
architectural.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
but overall, I was quite happy with what we came back with.
Yeah. At the end of the day, by the by, it wasn't strictly street photography per se, but I was really pleased.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
The images.
Absolutely.
I loved all of them a lot. I thought they were fantastic, and I'm surprised, given how we were on the day, that they came out as well as they were.
Yeah, you know what was really encouraging also? Nina had some really kind words
she did.
for our efforts. And, of course, she gave us some really awesome tips. So, I can only say that if you are into street photography or you want to get into it and you want to get some tips on how you can improve your street photography, episode 65 does contain some real gems from one of the best out there.
Gold.
So absolute gold. So check it out, episode 65, and have a giggle about our little efforts.
Giggle, giggle.
Yeah. Anyway, episode 65, highly recommended. Here's a little clip. Hey, man. Hey, what is happening?
What is happening? I'm good, man. I'm good.
Glad you're here. Fancy meeting you in person.
Yeah, outside. It's very cold, man.
How long has it been since we've shot an episode actually face to face?
3 months, 4 months, 5 months?
Yeah, it's been about
a long time.
Yeah.
Too long.
Since before Christmas.
Too long.
We're in April now.
But lockdown rules have finally eased slightly, so we can meet outside. So we're doing a bit of an episode here.
So today's episode will be shot in the beautiful English countryside, as you can see behind us. Now, we thought of a very specific challenge for this episode. So we've decided to make up on our, attempt to go to London before Christmas to shoot some street photography. And as you may remember, we ended up having to go to Brighton because, it wasn't particularly safe at the time to go into town. So we're going to make up for this time, and we're going to take you along.
This time, we're going to go there with the intent of trying to take a photo in the style of one of our recent guests, Nina Kling. Now, if you remember, she is an awesome street photographer from New York, and we absolutely love her stuff. But there's one specific type that we're going to go with the intention of trying to take.
Nina's style is very recognizable. And one of the things that I think really jumps out is the way that she manages to shoot silhouettes in a street situation. So we're going to go to London, not New York this time. We're going to go to London and we're going to try and emulate her silhouette street photography style and maybe put our own take on it.
Oh, interesting.
Who knows what that's going to be? Well, we'll find out.
So how many mistakes do you think we're going to make?
I don't know. Have you ever shot a silhouette?
Nope.
Definitely not. So we're going to find out how to do it, and we're going to take you along for the ride. I have another idea.
Easy.
What we really need is somebody to look at our images afterwards and give them a bit of a constructive criticism.
Top idea.
Clearly, that's the best way to learn, right?
Yeah. We've done it before in a couple of our challenges in the past.
Well, now I know nobody better than Nina Kling herself to give us a bit of a photo critique.
Do you think she's up for it?
Nina, are you up for it?
My first impression, I love the dark atmosphere of the photo.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great book cover, the between the birds and the shadow and it must have been a wet day maybe.
Yeah, it was.
The highlights on the street, the leading line. I think in order to, because there's a car with the lights at the end. The one thing, if you have a strong leading line, you want something strong where your eye goes to.
Mm-hmm.
So, as a viewer, like you go there, so you have the car and you have people off to the right. Now, ideally, if you would go back and reshoot it, if there's no car and there's somebody walking by with an umbrella, with balloons, something, a kid playing, something where it keeps your eye in the back because you are forcing, and plus your eye usually goes to the lightest part of the photograph.
Mm-hmm.
So my eye goes up to the birds. And then the birds, I think the birds are great. I actually like the birds added in. I love that those birds appeared in those photographs. It would have been, now bird photography is interesting in street photography because even the birds need to be placed perfectly. So you could have, or I probably would not have that cluster where they're kind of overlapping the wings. So if the wings, or move it over a little bit, or remove some of the wings so you have a clear silhouette, which I sometimes actually do in my photographs. If there is some kind of overlap for a silhouette, I will either go in and highlight it a little more so it pops more. I do like the sense of scale of the people at the end. I think that's awesome. Because if you have this kind of shot where you have the building in the foreground, I think the sense of scale is fabulous. Because you really feel that these buildings are towering and leaning in from right and left side. And I think it's a great photo in terms of the atmosphere and the sky and the birds and the people. It's very daunting.
The first photo for me, so this is now we're into our London photos. So you find a lot of tourists down there, and we were just walking through here, and Kay happened to be walking along that stretch in the middle, and thought, and this was right, let's just take a snap now, let's get it done quickly. While I said, Kay, turn around, look at me, put your camera down, and just took it. In hindsight, I'd like to have been slightly more on center. Further off.
I read it as very much centered because, again, my eye, the part that I'm most interested in is the very nice negative space around the head.
Yeah.
That kind of cutout that it creates. I think if you actually lighten the side of the building a little more, then the whole figure becomes more of the space around it. Because on the right side where the it kind of gets blended in a little more. So in
Yeah.
order for that, because it's all about the figure. I mean, this is less of a candid street shot. I think it's more of to me, it reads more like a portrait in an environmental portrait.
Yeah.
So I think I think it reads really well as that. And I really do like how you place the face and how you immediately go to the figure. And it really is about the figure. I think if you would have wanted to make it more into a street scene, I would have moved him way back.
Further back.
In space.
Yeah.
Because then he kind of becomes part of the scene, and you would have had the white space create a frame around him and would have set him apart from the environment around him.
Absolutely.
So for the next shot, this is a shot that I took in one of the side streets. And as always, I think when you are in a city, you're very often preoccupied with the things that are happening in front of you. But especially in big cities, it pays to look up sometimes. And so in this particular area of London, in this particular street, I think the thing that was striking was just this geometry of the the balconies and the lines and those buildings, and with the sky being what it was, it just it seemed like it would make a good shot.
So I think, again, in terms of composition and tonality, even if that's even a word, I love I love those lines on this. I guess they're balcony lines or the railings going up. Now, you're absolutely right that your focal point again goes to the lightest part of the photograph. So then you decided to put the airplane there, but now I'm thinking, what could there be where you wouldn't Photoshop and that would make this photograph of interest in that space? Would it have to be crazy clouds, or would it be more about the clouds? What if the clouds become more of the focal point and you actually have just less on the sides and just have fragments of the building? Because right now you have your focal points is the geometry of the building. And I like that the right side and the left side is actually not symmetrical. So you have this kind of zigzagging in and out on the right side, and you have just this one line on the left side. What would happen if you kind of go further to the right and it becomes a kind of a slimmer space in the middle, or you make it about the sky with the fragments on the side? And I'm not saying that works or not, but somehow your intuition of something needs to be there is because it does make it a better photo if there is a point of interest in the lightest part. But what happens if you put it on a diagonal? Because then it becomes more dynamic. Do you still need the plane in the middle? Yeah. But again, I mean, you clearly are very successful in finding the geometry and in a very pleasing layout of a photo. But it's more about the architecture than it is about street photography. The difference is, that's personal. I like to show the impact of a human being.
Yes.
So let's say one of the balcony would have had a piece of laundry blowing.
Yeah.
I don't think you needed anything else, because I think the story is that there are people living. So one little, or a handprint, or maybe some graffiti on the side on one side. So my distinction of street photography, it does not have to have people. It can be architectural. But in my mind, it needs to have a human impact.
So this final one from me was near the first one. It was a similar area, but just up the road, I believe. And so that building in the background is the Shard, by the way. Which is that still the tallest building in Europe?
In Europe? I'm not sure. Maybe.
I think it was when it was built. Maybe it's not anymore. It's certainly the tallest building in the UK, I think.
what you do really well is the details and the architectural shapes in London. And I also like, so for example, I love the fact that this tree with no leaves, it kind of aligns with the building. I mean, maybe, but I like the added tree in the landscape. I also like that the knees mimic the building.
Right. Yeah.
There's this repetition of shape, which is also something that is nice to look for and to capture.
I actually took three shots at this moment, and you're in a slightly different position for each one, and I chose this particular one for exactly that reason.
Yeah, because it's great to have the repetition of the shape and mimic the shard, and then again, I mean, the leading line, because you stop the viewer's eye with the person.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the person goes right there, and then you move around and look at the building. And I think it's the same suggestion. If you wanted to make it more about scale, I think this is more about Kay shooting, in this area. And I think these are all amazing shots to put in your website to kind of showing you as a photographer. If you wanted to see scale, I would move him way back.
Further back. Yep.
Because he's still too big.
Yeah.
In terms of really pushing the scale, the scale part of the photograph.
Number 7 of our top 10 of the favorite episodes of 2021 is the Joe Mcnally episode, episode 79.
I mean, do we need to say anything about this? I'm not sure we do.
Well,
it's Joe McNally.
We didn't pick any particular guest out because we've had so many amazing guests over the last year, and that's really one of the things I think that's sort of blown my mind, throughout the whole year is just the caliber of guests that we managed to get on the show. When we first started out with the podcast, back in 2020, we could have only dreamt of having the people on that we managed to get on. And so it's been an absolute pleasure and a real honor to have really all of the guests on that we've had on. We've learned something with every guest that we've interviewed, and it's made us better photographers and appreciate, all sorts of different genres of photography. And I hope, this is our hope, of course, that it's helped you, the listeners and the viewers, to improve your photography as well. And we're going to try and make that more of a central theme for 2022 as well. So, that's our aim, is to help you get better at what you do. Now, the Joe McNally episode was phenomenal, not only because we managed to get Joe McNally on the show, but also because it took us quite a while to actually get him on the show. And that was really not through nobody's fault, but it was just the way things panned out and things that happened in his personal life and in my personal life, basically. That meant that we had to postpone that interview quite a few times. And then to finally actually, get him on the show and being able to conduct the interview was really very special, I thought.
Do you know what struck me about the arrangement of, you're getting that date scheduled was that, if you could call Joe McNally a bit of a photographer superstar, couldn't you?
Yeah.
Right? And you would expect that someone of his caliber would be challenging to pin down a date with, which it was to begin with. He's busy man.
Absolutely.
Busy man.
Absolutely.
But when issues arose that could not be overcome, he could not have been more forthcoming in trying to find any time of day, even if it meant him getting up at 4 in the morning.
That was one of the options.
To make sure it happened.
Yeah.
And that says a lot about a man. And he wow. I mean, what can you say about that?
He literally suggested for him to get up at 4 a.m. to make this interview happen. That was phenomenal. We managed to find a more suitable slot you know,
5 a.m.
That was pretty much 5 a.m., wasn't it? But
that wasn't.
you know, yeah. So that was that really was very special when it came together. And of course, you know, with somebody like Joe Mcnally and his career and, you know, his experience and experiences in the photography industry, it really was a bit of a schooling. It was just so interesting to hear his stories of, you know, of all the different things that he had the opportunity to do and to achieve over the decades. You know, it really was mind blowing. So again, episode 79. Here's a little clip. Hope you enjoy it.
Who was easier to work with, Trump or Biden?
Joe Biden is a decent man and affable to a fault. We got along really well, and he still has the picture I made of him. That was the lead photograph. He uses it now in his Instagrams. He has it framed right behind the Resolute desk.
Oh,
and he recently did an Instagram where he's holding that framed picture. It's just a simple shot, available light picture of him on Amtrak, but he is known, his nickname is Amtrak Joe, because he would take the Amtrak every day into Washington as a senator during his senatorial career, and because he lived in Wilmington, which is a pretty short throw on Amtrak. So he got the nickname Amtrak Joe.
Fantastic. So I don't know if I really want to know, but what was it like working with Donald Trump?
It was
challenging.
Let me choose my words. Actually, to me, you know, he just kind of treated me like a piece of equipment. You know,
Right.
I was just this guy with a camera, and he did what I asked him to do. His ego is bottomless, so he's perfect fodder for the camera. Never said no. Was thoroughly thrilled at that point to be heading for the cover of Newsweek, which he was, you know, on the cover. One of the worst cover photographs I ever shot. You know, Newsweek was happy with it. I was like, you know, because he came out of a conference room. I was all set up in another room, and he came out of a conference and he looked at me and goes, "I've got 3 minutes. Let's shoot this cover."
Wow.
Okay. All right. You want to be like that? Go ahead and be like that. I'll shoot you for 3 minutes, and you know, we'll get this done. So, yeah, it was an interesting and laborious week. I was pretty exhausted at the end of it.
You must literally have, you know, thousands of stories like that throughout your career.
Well, the wonderful thing about being a photographer is that you do get to encounter a lot of life, you know, and you have an inside track in a certain way because you are associated with a publication, you have a camera, you are there to document, record, etc. And so oftentimes people allow you access to certain areas of their lives or their businesses or whatever it might be because they are participating in this story. So you get a bit of an insider look at lots of different things. And the wonderful thing is you are oftentimes sent to photograph people because they are so excellent at what they do. Be it a dancer or an actor, actress, author, scientist. They are noteworthy. They are doing excellent work. They are a cultural phenomena. They are whatever they might be. You're sent to photograph. So you are a witness to excellence, which is wonderful.
Now, Joe, you've completed so many different assignments throughout your career. Anything from, you know, shooting, you know, press photography in New York City to war zones around the world. What was the most harrowing sort of assignment you've ever done?
I've done a very brief amount of conflict, you know, areas. I never really went out seeking conflict. Let me just establish I'm not a war photographer, and I have tremendous admiration for those photographers who have done it at a high level and repeatedly do it, put themselves at risk to document these kinds of situations. So at Life, I did a few scenarios, you know, with a panoramic camera. It was sort of aftermath kinds of things in Rwanda or Somalia or Afghanistan or Chechnya, places like that. So, those always have their moments, of potential risk, and you go in understanding that, and you try to minimize it as best as possible. And it was not an area of photography that I endeavored in extensively. What is the real key to doing that kind of work is to have boots on the ground for long periods of time. In other words, really develop a set of contacts and resources and thorough knowledge of the area in question, so that you can photograph effectively. So I've only done it a couple of times. I was in the north of Ireland back in the day. That was my first real bouncing off of international news. I was on the streets of Belfast when Bobby Sands died in the H blocks. And that was pretty hectic, out there on the streets of Belfast. But I've always lived more comfortably in the realm of my imagination, and the idea of doing stories on people and following them through, or a theme or a narrative. I always likened the idea of doing a story at the National Geographic. I always likened the narrative to be like a clothesline, and I would just hang my pictures on it as I would go.
Mm-hmm. That's a way to think about it. I think, I wonder if, did you, if you take those, perhaps the times in, or any of those kind of conflict areas, if you like, have you ever felt unsafe to the point where you thought, is this really worth it?
Sure. I got flown into Somalia from Nairobi. I flew in on a Red Cross plane, and I had made arrangements with a wonderful man, Mohammed, who ran a hotel in downtown Mogadishu called the Sahafi, which is Arabic for journalist. And he would be kind of a resident fixer for journalists who are visiting that very unusual city. And I had made arrangements with him, and the airstrip, it was really just kind of a stretch of sand north of Moog. He said, they'll drop you off there and I'll come get you. So the Red Cross plane dropped me off, and the pilot said, they said something about, there were landmines, that had been planted on some of the airstrips. He wasn't going to hang around. So he spun the plane around and he took off, and that little Red Cross plane just became a dot in the blue sky.
God.
And I sat down on my equipment, and there was nobody there. And I thought, this might have been really, really dumb, for me to have done this. But, after an hour or so, maybe a bit more, I saw some dust trails, and it was Mohammed and his crew, came and picked me up and got me safely across the green line and to the Sahafi. And then he kind of worked it out with me about what I needed to do to stay safe and photograph in Mogadishu.
Wow. To have someone on the ground there like that is just, must be comforting to know that you had someone that you could rely on.
Oh, fixers are a wonder and a gift to the photographer. National Geographic had a legendary network of fixers. And, you could plug into these folks. They had a history with the magazine. And if you were going, say, to Moscow or Tokyo, you don't speak the language, you have to have somebody there who's facilitating what you're trying to do.
And here is number 8 of our top 10 episodes of 2022.
It's very enthusiastic.
Number 8. Well, it was an enthusiastic episode because number 8 was the 5-room challenge episode.
Yes.
So that was episode 48.
40. God, that doesn't feel that. Again, concerned at how quick the last year has gone.
Yeah,
wow.
The 5-room challenge was an interesting episode.
It was. Yeah.
What we like to do on the podcast is, of course, we like to challenge our guests. And a few weeks earlier, or a couple of months earlier, we had Dana Did It on the show. And we thought we challenge him to a challenge. And so the idea that we came up with
was... As
was...
opposed to challenging him to...
something else. Another challenge. Anyway, so the 5-room challenge basically meant that we had to go out and find an object in...
5 objects.
Sorry, 5 objects from 5 different rooms in our houses.
Yeah.
And then combine them to create a photograph of some sort.
What I loved about this is how we all came up with 3 completely different approaches to how we did our photos.
Yeah.
You know, actually, I'm not even going to describe them because you're going to have to go watch that.
Absolutely. So if you are, of course, if you are listening to the audio version of this podcast, I highly recommend you hop over to YouTube, where you can obviously see our efforts, and the results of that
You've
challenge.
got to see them. They're so different.
Yeah,
They're
and
so different.
We on one hand, we obviously we described what we were doing, but we all shot like a behind the scenes video of how we put the whole thing together, which was very cool. And it was one of these things. I think we were sort of in the middle of the second or third lockdown or something at the beginning of the year, and we didn't really have that much else to do. And it really gave us the freedom to just go and experiment and have a think about it and put this whole thing together.
Yeah.
And and our three approaches were very, very different.
Yeah. And I think that's what really made this challenge great.
Yeah.
Is we could all come up with the same kind of different objects, fine, different this, different that, but same kind of approach. But it was a totally different approach on all of them. Yeah. And I love that. I learned so much from both of you that, well, oh, okay, that's cool. But equally at the same time, I went into it going, you know what, I'm just going to try something I've not tried before.
And you did something really totally different, actually.
It was totally different from my perspective. And I'd never done it, you know. There was some light painting involved.
Exactly.
And
with an iPad.
With an iPad.
Yeah.
Who knew? But isn't it funny how things start to connect and you go, and this is why it's so important that if you do landscape photography or you do this, you do that, you do this, you do that, is to try and bring things that you learn doing those different types of photography into something else that you want to do. And that's what I tried to do there, is that we've done a lot of light painting cars.
Yes, absolutely,
of late, since lockdown started. And I thought, well, why can't I do something to do with that in this photo? Because the objects that I found related to light and colour.
No.
The first couple I thought, I'm going to stick with light and colour. It's working. That's where I like that. And I thought I'll go with that. And that's where it led me to. And I was, is it the greatest photo in the world? No. But I love doing it. Well, and I learned a ton doing it.
Because it's the process, I think. Yeah. That's the interesting part, like making the whole thing. And, we've talked about this many times, obviously, on the podcast, is that actually, the process of making something is what really drives us, much more than the end result in many ways. I had so much fun, first of all, thinking up my challenge, if you want, or thinking up my final photo and thinking up the composition and thinking about what objects I was going to use and how they would relate to each other and how I could make them relate to each other, and also what story I could tell in the photo. That was, to me, that was really fun. And then once I'd sort of arrived at, this is the story that I want to tell, then I kind of kept thinking, okay, so what sort of objects work together and how can I arrange them so that they, that they built this little relationship and they come together in the photo in a way that they look like they belong together.
Do you know what struck me? And I'm just thinking back to it now, is that Dunner had a collection of items that he managed to put together in a scene.
Yeah.
Items that you wouldn't expect to be put together. Mm-hmm. I put items together which had a connection, a topical connection, if you like. Well, maybe that's not the right word, but color and light. I made sure that they were all related to that for whatever reason. But you put, and this it screams you to me, knowing you as well as I do. You put together items which told a story.
Yeah.
And they all did their own thing, and that's what I loved about it.
That's for me, that's always the underlying. The foundation of everything is the storytelling aspect of it. And that was actually kind of what I started with. I tried to come up with a story, and then things start to fall into place quite easily. And then it was really just about finding the centerpiece, and all the rest of it. But it was a really, really fun challenge, I think.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
I really liked putting. I shot.
It was hard though to begin with.
Yeah, in the beginning, it was just, and I really spent a lot of time just trying to find the right story, basically, because I was thinking about cars and the kind of stuff that we've been doing, and and I couldn't really come up with stuff. And I was looking around my house, and I couldn't really find anything that would relate to that in any way in all the different rooms, And so once I kind of settled on the story that I wanted to tell in the photograph, then it was relatively easy to find the objects that would fit together.
Yeah.
But the whole process of actually setting out the flat light was basically a flat light that I shot, and fiddling around with it and like giving it some atmosphere and just making it, prodding stuff. And as you know, I love doing all that kind of stuff.
What, prodding?
Well, yeah, 100%. So that really to me was probably the best 2 or 3 hours in that week, was just being able to shut everything else out and just concentrate on that, and like creating that, and flicking some, I don't know, coffee powder or some straw or whatever else I used to create atmosphere in that, and just making that. And also making the behind the scenes video was also fun. I really enjoyed actually making that, and and cutting that together and stuff like that. So it was because it was one of these things where we were making something, and I love that. And of course we kind of make these episodes every week, but it was just another extra thing that we just happened to make that week. And that was super fun, again, at a time when the UK was in pretty much in a full lockdown.
That's it.
So here is episode 48. Hope you enjoy it.
All right, so I've picked out my 5 objects for the 5-room challenge. The first one actually being this table that happens to be in my living room. I really love to shoot on this. And then in the bedroom, I found this book. It has a really cool kind of texture to it, and it's just kind of a basic gray. So we're actually gonna be using this as kind of a backdrop. From the bathroom, I've got this beard oil, which is in this really cool kind of plain, rustic looking brown bottle. From my office, I got my Pentax ME Super. This is gonna be kind of the star of the show, our center point. And then finally from the kitchen, I got this big knife, and we're actually going to be using this as kind of a way to reflect right close to the lens itself. So this is going to be completely out of focus. You're not actually going to see this, but I'm just going to hold it right up to the bottom of the lens and see if I can get some kind of cool light, almost like light leaks. I'm going to be shooting on the Sony a7 III with the 105mm macro lens from Sigma. I just got this lens, so I'm all excited to use it. So I know that it's going to be a pretty kind of tight frame. And then with the knife, all I'm going to do is kind of hold it up right in front of the actual lens itself and just try and find the right spot for it. All right, I got my shot. It's looking pretty good. I'm actually going to transfer it straight from the a7 III over to my phone and do the edit in Lightroom Mobile so you can see the before and the after here.
So first up, I decided that I would go with colour and light as a theme. And I went around my house and I grabbed some of those objects. Let's see how that looked. So we've got an Edison bulb lamp, which has come from my bedroom. We've got a candle, which I took from the living room. A rubber duck from the bathroom, because why not? And we've got a classic 70s style lava lamp. And we've got a Galileo thermometer, which came from my hallway. I'm using the Canon R6. It's got a Tamron 90mm macro lens on the front. And from a settings perspective, I've gone for 5.6, so there's still some depth of field there. ISO 100. And then my shutter speed was 2 different shutter speeds, because I took 2 shots as a composite here. I had one was set at around 1/250th of a second. That was to freeze the flame and to give a little more detail in the Edison bulb itself. My other shot was then at 10 seconds. And so now let me talk about the lighting. There was no lighting. This is a 10-second exposure where the only lighting involved was with my iPad. So what I've done is you'll see the blue and the purple kind of lines at the back. That's my iPad. And what I've done is put a JPEG of those kind of lines, turned on my iPad, turned up the brightness on the iPad to its max, set the camera rolling, and then I've slowly walked behind the scene to create those lines. Once I'd gone all the way across, I then moved around the objects to give some of that light onto those objects as well. So I've effectively light painted the scene. It probably took a couple of tries to get that just right, but other than that, it was as simple as it sounds. From an editing perspective, there wasn't a lot that went into this. I composited those two photos together and then simply was in Lightroom, and I boosted the contrast, the highlights and the shadows a bit, a little clarity in there too, and I also added a little orange to the highlights and some magenta to the shadows, because that's what just felt good to me in this particular image. Anyway, it's a bit different. It's not something I normally do, and I guarantee it's going to be different to the other guys. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked the photo. And if you haven't tried out light painting with an iPad, go do it.
Number 9. Number 9.
What was that?
Number 9 in our top 10 of our favorite episodes of 2021 was the Lockdown Shootout.
Sorry, hang on. You don't get to get away with that.
9?
No, what was that? I'm making that my ringtone on my message tone for you.
Brilliant, I want to hear that.
Wow. Lockdown Shootout, yes.
Yeah, Lockdown Shootout.
This was brilliant.
Episode 42, the Lockdown Shootout with Ivan Weiss.
My God, I loved every single second of this particular one. Forget doing it myself for a minute and all of that, and creating my own BTS for it, all of that. What I learned watching your guys' videos was it's just one of those hours where you go, oh yeah, oh wow, oh wow, yes, yeah, okay. You can learn more in an hour than you've learned over the last 5 years. It's one of those episodes that it is gold from start to finish.
So the cool thing about the Lockdown Shootout was that we, again, it's very, not too dissimilar to the 5-Room Challenge, where we had Ivan Weiss on the show a few weeks earlier, and we challenged him to yet another challenge. And what we came up with was, we basically said, okay, let's spend a week creating a selfie. This is really a selfie challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But we're gonna create selfies of ourselves in some elaborate way. And then we compare them and we talk about them, and we take you through the whole process of how we shot them and how we edited them in the end. And that was, again, it was one of these things, we were in the middle of a lockdown, and, it just gave us all something to do. And Ivan was immediately into that idea.
Oh yeah.
And that was an awesome thing. Again, it got us to do something.
Yep.
It got us to be creative, and we, just being able to show the whole process, hopefully
gave our viewers and our listeners, something to think about, and maybe learn one or two new things.
Absolutely.
I certainly found, when I looked at when I followed Ivan's behind the scenes video, that was really super interesting to see how how he thinks when he shoots, and also how he creates his signature style. That was super, super informative. Again, episode 42, go check it out.
I mean, I thought we both created great photos, but Ivan's was just on another level. It was superb.
Yeah, and what was great was that we all, in a way, sort of thought the same thing initially, where we thought like, oh, we're going to have to sort of copy Ivan's style or something to compete with him.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we all arrived, and including Ivan, by the way.
Yeah.
We all kind of arrived at the point where we thought like, well, actually, no, we're going to have to do something that's us. Like I have to do something that's me. I can't try and look and create something that looks like Ivan's work.
Yeah.
That's completely pointless and actually sort of missing the point.
Totally missing the point. You're right.
And so I think all three of us created self-portraits that really reflect us and who we are and how we think when we create photos.
So Ivan, mature, sophisticated, cool guy.
Yeah.
Me, miserable, moody bastard. You, bit of a clown.
Well, yeah, I mean, true. Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm being slightly facetious about it all.
But it's true, yeah, absolutely.
Give or take. That's, it's kind of the what we ended up with, wasn't it?
And it's true, yeah. I mean, and the thing is, like, self-portraits, of course, that's absolutely true. I mean, self-portraits really, in an ideal world, self-portraits are not just a photograph of your face or something. Right. It's in an ideal world, they showcase your personality as much as what you look like. And I think that's really, really important. And if you can create something that really transcends that, and that really, includes your personality or showcases your personality, then you're really getting to the ultimate, raison d'etre of a self-portrait, And I think, and it's true. I mean, you look at Ivan's self-portrait. The colors are muted. That's him. That's him. Absolutely down to a T. That's how he dresses. Those are the colors that he is very fond of. You can see that in all of his work. It's down to the background colors that he chooses and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
With you have that kind of emotional depth to it. And that really came across in the way you lit your image and in your pose and your facial expression, and everything else. And for me, I like to look at the humorous side and things, and I do like to include a little bit of humor in there as well. And that's what I try to do. And for me also, I involved my stepdaughter in it, and it was a bit of a kind of family affair as well, because it was just a fun thing to do. Totally. I had fun doing it. It was, again, we were in the middle of a lockdown, so actually everybody was up for, creating a bit of a mess in my studio space, and
you did,
and I did, yeah, and we had just had a little bit of fun, and it was very cool. And so again, this is one of the challenges where we just practically got to do something and got to make something, and that's definitely why for me that is in the top 10. Oh, yeah. So here is episode 42, or a little impression of episode 42, the Lockdown Shootout. And again, be reminded that if you want to see the whole episode, including the bits where we're taking you through the Lightroom and Photoshop edits of that, then you find the link in the description below. But here's a little bit of episode 42. So Ivan, when we first came up with the idea of doing a selfie challenge, what went through your mind there?
Well, I mean, to be honest, the first thing that I was thinking was, because it's Camera Shake podcast, I had in mind an idea of trying to shoot something that incorporated the idea of Camera Shake. And as is my normal sort of creative process, I just do a lot of kind of unstructured thinking and just let the idea kind of roll around in my mind for a few days. And then I realized that I would need some way to shake the camera, because if it's a self-portrait, it's a bit difficult to do. So I started thinking, is there some way I could like sit it on top of the washing machine or, something of that nature. But yeah, that turned out to be a non-starter when I started getting more into the technicals. So yeah, when I sort of turned away from that idea, I just thought, well, actually, let me just shoot something that's, in the style of what I would normally shoot for a client, but with myself as the subject. So I went from there, and having all the time in the world and not needing to worry about keeping my subject from getting bored or having to engage the subject, I ended up just getting all of my lights out and setting up a ridiculously complicated light setup. And I had a great deal of fun playing with adjusting each of the lights to get very specific with which bits of the image are lit and how they're lit and from what direction, and hard light and soft light and all of that stuff. So yeah, it was great in the end. I think, like I said on the first podcast, sitting there thinking about it, it felt like, oh, this is a big thing. But once I got going, oh yeah, it was fun. I spent several hours, and it was satisfying to create something.
Nick, how about you? What went through your mind when we first sort of came up with this challenge?
Fear. No, I thought, well, obviously I know Ivan's work and the type of portraits and that he does, and they're just, if you haven't seen his work before, just go and pause this, go look now, and it's just awesome. I thought there's no way I'm going to be able to produce something anywhere close to what Ivan does. But for topic, like Ivan, a couple of things went through my head. I thought, do I perhaps try and go for something similar to what I suspect Ivan might produce, so that we're kind of on the same wavelength? I thought, no, that's silly. Do what I do and do it as well as I can, and so that's what I settled on. I had a theme in my head of, and for the life, annoyingly, I can't remember what it was I was watching. But I was watching some TV drama, and I thought, that could be interesting. And how about I come up with something that's a little bit like what might be a TV advert of a really moody character. And I thought, yeah, that kind of sits quite well with my personality. So that's the route that I went. I kept things simple, quite deliberately, because space was a bit of an issue too. Yeah, there we go. That was my general thought process to begin with, without going into great details about the setup yet. Anyway, how about you, Kay?
I think I had similar thoughts. At first I thought like, okay, a photo challenge with Ivan in the game, that's hard. And then of course the next thing you think like, okay, I've got to produce something that's sort of in Ivan's style. And so I had some ideas of like, totally recreating one of his sort of self-portraits that he's got on his website and just putting my face in it. So, but then I sort of thought, no, that's, it's just like you, Nick. I kind of thought, well, actually, I've just got to do what I do, and so it sort of means that you end up playing to your strengths, of course. What was different this time was that I thought I had an idea, well, probably about a year ago or something, when I started a photo series called 3 Heads in a Row, which is really shot in the style of what I produced for this challenge. And so the idea was there to sit across the table from another person, and have a chat for a couple of hours and just shoot, and then create literally a triptych of portraits that go on Instagram, because you've got 3 images per row. That's why it's called 3 Heads in a Row. and to really kind of bring out sort of almost like a comedic side to it. And I started that in 2019. And then of course COVID totally disrupted that endeavor. And I realized a little while ago that I hadn't shot, like the last person I shot for this particular photo project was my mom, and that was Christmas 2019. And so I realized that I hadn't shot anything for this in a whole year. And I kind of thought, you know what, this is actually just an opportunity to really kind of get back into things. And at the same time, I bought some new modifiers and stuff. And I kind of thought, you know what, if I can use this as a challenge to sort of to simplify the process for myself at the same time, but produce sort of the same result, then I'm kind of killing two birds with one stone, as it were. So that was the thing. And it, you know, the idea of doing sort of an action shot, that was the next part of the concept. But it was super fun. I got my almost my whole family involved in the actual shoot. So it was a bit of a, it was a fun little exercise. So I actually had a lot of fun doing it in the end. So before we come to number 10 of our top 10 of our favorite episodes, let me just tell you now, we got a bonus in there for you at the end. So stick around to the end. I know. Anyway, number 10 in our top 10 of our favorite episodes of 2021 is episode 56. That was our interview with Joel Grimes.
Joel. Legend.
That was an absolute legend.
Wasn't it?
That was super fun. What struck me about that was how open Joel was in really, the whole episode was like peppered with nuggets of gold.
It was over and over and over again. Just when you think it stopped, it started again.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And, the problem really is that we've had, again, I can honestly say that I've enjoyed every single episode where we had a guest on.
Oh, yeah.
And it's been absolutely phenomenal. But if there's like one person where I thought we're never going to get him on the show, it was Joel Grimes. And in fact, the funny thing was that when I initially emailed Joel, he literally got back to me within 2 minutes or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just went, yeah, when? Let's do it.
You see?
It was just amazing.
Good people. They're just good people.
Absolutely. So we, we had to pick number 10, and let's have a look at.
We don't need to say anything about it, do we?
I know.
It's just every single second is worth watching.
Classic
but we'll show
episode.
you a little bit of it now.
Absolutely. Classic episode. Episode 56, Joel Grimes. Have a look now.
It's the trendsetters that usually get the most attention.
Yeah.
And I always say, don't set a trend just to get attention. Set a trend to fulfill your vision as an artist.
Exactly.
But in stepping out of the box a little bit, you do get, and you do go down a path that maybe a lot of people haven't done yet. And so I'm always willing to take the heat. And my wife answers most of my social media stuff. And of course, I get shredded all the time. Just about every day, someone says I suck. And then, there's a whole group that say you're amazing, right? But there's always someone that says you're off, you're terrible, whatever. Keep your day job kind of thing. But I'm willing to take the hit. I like it when I get, well, I wouldn't say, if someone says I'm bald, that kind of hurts, because I'm very self-conscious about that. Just kidding. But they attack me personally. But no, I like the idea of ruffling the feathers a little bit, and I'm willing to take the heat. So I'm willing to take the risk of stepping out. And a lot of photographers are not. They're just so nervous about getting criticized. And I think you have to have a little bit of a thick skin, or I don't know if it's so much thick skin. It's more of just understanding the real world and how it works, that if you try to please everyone, you'll please no one. So, and if I try to please myself, that's number one. And I say that, and I'm not a selfish person. I mean, we're all selfish to some degree, but I'm not saying that, it's all about me. It's what I'm saying is that as an artist, I have to get to my end result. And if I don't get to my end result, then what am I doing? I'm just copying other people, or I'm spinning like a dog chasing its tail. So I have an end result I want to get to. I'm willing to take that risk. I step out. Maybe I fumble a little bit, and people don't agree with what I'm doing. But eventually, I always say that if you take anything and you refine it enough, you will get good at it, and you'll get a following, and you'll make a mark.
Yeah, you just have to believe in what you're doing.
What you do, right?
Yeah, and just carry on with it, regardless. Really,
The same thing happens in music. Go to all those shows like American Idol and the X Factor, whatever all those shows, and someone gets up there and they have a great voice and they have everything, but they don't have a hook to hang their hat on. They're just copying somebody else's. So what do they say? Be original, be yourself.
Yeah. My favorite type of criticism usually on places like YouTube and, any of the social really, but on YouTube, I see it a lot, is those that are having a go about what someone's doing, but smokescreen it in all this technical jargon and all these random techie words that they think that whatever they can cram in there to cover up the fact that actually they don't have a point whatsoever. They're my favorites. They're my faves.
Yeah, well, because as an instructor, and if you've taught anything, you know this to be true. Even as your development as a photographer, it's a lot easier to learn technical stuff than to be a creative person. The technical comes a lot easier, right? You can use terms and f-stop, shutter speeds, and all that. When it comes to the creative process, it's a lot harder to find that. And so as an instructor, I could get away really easily with building a thick note, a handout and saying to everyone, here's all the technical information you need to know, and then walk away, right? And just say, learn this. And that's how a lot of the instructors I had going through college were very technical. And it was easy. You just drop off the notes, or whatever it is and say, learn this, read this, but when it comes to really teaching someone how to see, how to have a vision, that's a lot harder. And so as an instructor, I spend a lot of time trying to teach people how to be, how to have a signature, a creative voice, those kind of things. And it's kind of a little bit more like it's kind of a, nebulous thing. And it's not as easy to define. So there are people that want the note, the handout with 32 pages of technical information on lighting. I can teach you how to light very quickly from an intuition perspective. It'll take me weeks, months to teach you how to do it technically. But I can teach it really quick. So when I go and do my lighting, people are they're dumbfounded. They can't believe how simple it is because they've been taught the technical side of things, fractions, ratios, all these things. And I for years, I haven't touched a flash meter. And there are photographers. One is Frank Dorov. We have this little thing going on. Me and Frank. He's a hoot, and he's really into his flash meter. I lost mine, broke 35, 40 years ago, and I haven't replaced it. Yeah, and so we get into a little bit of a battle on that. But I mean, to each his own. I mean, he's got his way to approach things, and that's fine. But I'm much more of an intuition. How does it look? Does it feel right? Is it working? Well, I don't care what the exposure is. If it doesn't work, if it's a correct, I always say, what is a correct exposure? Does anybody know? Yeah. Well, I can take a gray card, stick it in my scene and photograph it, and I have to make that exactly 50% gray. I can do that, but does that make an exciting picture? No.
It's very similar to music. The way I always kind of compare it to music is when you try and teach somebody how to improvise. Right. Because you can teach somebody the scales, and the chords and which scales to use in which context. But you always have options when it comes to scales. And secondly, improvisation is not just rattling down the scales. It's basically making music out of it. And it's just as nebulous, as teaching somebody about creativity.
You remember when Carlos Santana came out with the Supernatural album? It was album of the year or whatever. And I'm a guitar player, and I listened to him, and you think about Carlos Santana, and there's some great guitar players out there, but Carlos Santana, what he did is his guitar is, you say, where's the lead solo? It's throughout the whole song.
Yeah, it's the whole song. Yeah.
And so that's kind of strange. Okay, so because usually you're singing your verse, chorus, verse, then all of a sudden there's a lead, guitar's part, But and then the other thing that he does, and a lot of guitarists do, is you got your timing right. So you're supposed to be on track with your timing. But a good musician will they'll slow it down and then speed up and catch up to the timing. Right? It's like this arc. This whatever, this slow, and then come back, and then you end right on timing. Yeah. And that's a good musician. Jazz musicians do that too. It's where you're mixing it up emotionally to where the listener is sucked in, right? And in some ways, you think a good musician is there, but you don't really know they're there, right? They're filling in something that's perfect, but it's not overpowering. And the same thing with photography is that you're doing something that is maybe extremely important to the photograph, but it's so subtle that it's unless you really know it's there, you don't what to look for, you don't know it's there. And so when you look at my photographs, they're worked, they're contrived. I mean, they're polished. But what I also want to do is polish it to where then it doesn't look like it's polished. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Total sense.
It's a hard thing to do, but and maybe I'm not succeeding, I don't know, but I feel like, it's that it's a what does it call it? Order in a world of chaos.
So I hope you enjoyed our favorite top 10, but before we finish, let's just move on to our bonus episode, because we couldn't just leave it at 10.
No.
Absolutely.
And there's definitely someone we cannot leave out.
Absolutely. Now,
are you
Tommy,
still listening?
Are you still listening in the car, Tommy? Or are you watching that YouTube video again? So, I think we can't get around to saying a big thank you to Tommy Reynolds, of course, who has been on the show not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times in total.
I think that's a little greedy on his part, don't you think?
Well, over the last, not only over the last year, but actually over the last sort of year and a half.
Yeah.
Now, again, I remember emailing Tommy the very first time. This was back very early on, after we started the podcast, and he was so happy to come on, and he had so much energy that we asked him to come back a little bit later, and because I remember when we went into the second lockdown in the UK, which was sort of October time, or something like that.
I forget.
We thought we'd put an episode together of I think 5 different photographers who would give a little bit of advice on how to deal with yet another lockdown and what to do, and how you can keep your spirits up. And
as a creative, right?
As a creative, exactly. Yeah. And and of course, Tommy came back, and then of course we met Tommy again at the photography show in the flash, and we've spoken to him since a few weeks ago. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Tommy, for coming on the show and making this, a great experience for everyone.
Yeah, and it turns out, I'm not sure if we mentioned this on the last episode or not, but just prior to us filming the last episode, it turns out that Tommy and I have a connection that we didn't know existed.
Yeah, that's
which
right.
is very, very, very odd. Yeah. So a really good friend of mine is related to Tommy's wife.
Yeah, that wasn't the only thing, because he's also friends with a former student of mine, which was the other thing.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
Yeah, so there's a very weird connection. But hopefully we'll be seeing more of Tommy on this channel, I'm sure. So if you're interested in checking out the episodes that he features in, I'll do it backwards. It was episode 84 a couple of weeks ago, 75, 28, and 26.
So see what the cat dragged in. We've got Tommy as in the best intro.
Today's special guest is...
before you do announce who today's special guest is,
yes,
I'm pretty sure this special guest is going to be listening to this audio episode in the car.
Woo! Oh, yes! 100%. Right, so please welcome the highly renowned international portrait photographer, speaker, educator, the master of behind the scenes, and our brother from another mother, YouTube's very own Duracell bunny. Give it up for Tommy Reynolds one more time.
I've got to clap. That's the best intro someone's ever given me. That's brilliant. I love that.
So there you have it. Make sure you listen to these episodes on audio on all the usual platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, and cat in the background.
Cat's going mad.
Cat's going crazy.
Very, very upset.
So make sure you follow these episodes on audio, or if you prefer to see our lovely faces rather than just listen to our social voices, then make sure you hop over to YouTube, youtube.com/camera shake, where you can see our faces in full Technicolor. Now, again, please get in touch. It'd be super interesting for us to know what you thought of our top 10 and what your favorite episode was of 2021. And we'll be back next week with some more camera shake craziness.
Indeed.